Oakland, home of the Raiders, the West Coast blues and jazz scene, and the apartment where the former king of Wakanda accused his brother of betraying the throne. Oakland is also home to its own Chinatown community, one of the oldest Chinatowns in North America, and the slightly less glamorous, but no less important, cousin of its San Francisco counterpart. But in the time of COVID, Oakland Chinatown has been the subject of intense media scrutiny.
The man police believe is responsible for this violent attack of a 91-year-old and 2 other victims in Oakland's Chinatown is in jail tonight.
A 5-second clip of what appeared to be an elderly Asian man getting shoved to the street in Oakland went viral in February 2021, prompting Hollywood actors Daniel Dae Kim and Daniel Wu to offer a significant sum of money for anyone who had information on the perpetrator. As Daniel Dae Kim wrote on Twitter, "Daniel Wu and I are offering a $25,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of this man and his accomplices." But what most of us see of Oakland is just that, a completely decontextualized 5-second clip on social media. Reality is always a little more complicated. In the case of the highly publicized incident in Oakland's Chinatown, President of the Oakland Chinatown Chamber of Commerce, Carl Chan, later clarified that the 91-year-old victim wasn't Asian, but a Latino man named Gilbert Diaz. Yahya Muslim, the 28-year-old who attacked Diaz, has had a history of, quote, random and unprovoked assaults on strangers in his community. Police, witnesses, and victims agree that Muslim did not target any specific racial group. Muslim also has a history of mental health and addiction issues. This is not to diminish or dismiss the very real pain that Gilbert Diaz and his family experienced, or the over 9,000 incidents of anti-Asian violence that have been reported as of August 2021. But it's worth interrogating what the sudden influx of attention on Chinatown communities is disproportionately highlighting, what it's leaving out, and why celebrities who aren't even from Chinatown are determining the course of public perception and spearheading calls for legislation. This is the story of a community keeping their history alive, and why Oakland's Chinatown doesn't need saving. I'm Sabrina, and you're listening to Viral Love. In order to find out more about what was happening on the ground in Oakland, I got in touch with Maya and Daphne from Cut Fruit Collective, an organization that was formerly known as Save Our Chinatowns.
Hi, I'm Maya, and I'm from Cut Fruit Collective.
Hi, Daphne here from Cut Fruit Collective as well.
Their mission is to express community care with art, whether that means donating proceeds from local artist collaborations to businesses in need, or redesigning a restaurant that got burned down in a fire. And they've raised over $75,000 for Bay Area Chinatowns in the process. Founded during the start of the pandemic in March 2020 by artist Jocelyn Tsai, Daphne and Maya are now the ones who primarily run Cut Fruit Collective. I was lucky enough to spend a windy afternoon in Oakland with Daphne and Maya as my guides. And what would you say, I guess to both of you, like some of your favorite spots in Chinatown?
Oh yeah. I guess we can walk you through them.
Yeah, let's do it. There are a couple things you need to know about Oakland's Chinatown. 1, bring cash. 2, don't come if you're expecting to buy anything that says, "I love Chinatown" on it. Take it from Alicia, the owner of the Oakland Fortune Cookie Factory.
I think we're like the second oldest Chinatown in America. If not the oldest, we're definitely the second oldest Chinatown. We're still very much a working Chinatown. We're authentic in that regard. And the best thing, we don't have a lot of tourist stuff here, unlike San Francisco. So people come here, they always feel a little disappointed that there's not so much stuff to see. But really, you don't come to Oakland Chinatown to look at things. You really come here to just like enjoy the community and enjoy the food. We have so much like different restaurants here. I think people when they come here, they should be really coming here to like enjoy the food. And I think that in itself represents a lot about Oakland and it being more laid back. It's not like San Francisco. So yeah, our Oakland Chinatown I think reflects like Oakland in general in that regard.
I see. So the Oakland one's definitely better than the San Francisco one.
Well, I'm biased, you know.
Alicia might be biased, but pre-pandemic, Chinatown was the second highest revenue-generating neighborhood in Oakland. A fact that surprises many, Daphne said, myself included.
A living, breathing Chinatown. And so, yeah, you'll often hear locals or residents say that it's a living, breathing Chinatown, meaning it's for the people here, versus, being fossilized like some other Chinatowns. And that's what makes it, like, at once really vibrant, but also it can make it vulnerable to some other, to gentrification, displacement. If outsiders don't recognize what this neighborhood's about, who's living here, they don't value those businesses, they may think that nothing of value exists here.
Right, I see.
And so Oakland Chinatown's been dealing with gentrification, as has all of Oakland and a lot of the Bay Area. So that has generally been like the biggest kind of source of tension up until the pandemic.
Yeah. And then the pandemic. To get a sense of how the pandemic was affecting local businesses, Daphne, Maya, and I first stopped by Our Bakery, known only a year ago as a noodle shop called Our Noodle.
So I wanted to point out this spot.
Yeah.
You can see the sign here. It says Our Noodles. And actually, just in the last couple months, they changed to become a bakery. So to adjust, in the pandemic, since they couldn't do indoor dining. And so yeah, it's completely a bakery now, and they also have some deli products. But yeah,
That's amazing that they can just like tack on bakery. And be like,
yeah,
do both. Fresh handmade noodles, baked goods, all now COVID and home cooking friendly. What is your favorite item here, would you say?
I haven't tried everything quite yet, but I got the egg tarts, of course.
Classic. My biggest rookie mistake? Paying with card. It's so cheap. She kept being like, it's not $10 yet.
Oh, is that the card minimum?
Yeah.
Always bring cash.
Always.
Chinatown. Yeah.
Pro tip. Like I said, bring cash. Our bakery happened to be adept enough to convert from a noodle to a bakery operation. But weathering a pandemic isn't always that simple.
Yeah, anything, because the Chinatown have been like last 2 weeks since the incident on the Broadway and the 8th. People just disappear around this town. So I was thinking, we gotta do something to people have to get over it, because if they get pulled back, it's killing us. Like the whole town I walk around and said, what is going on? They said, we're not going to just open this. This is killing us. We just have to close out and go somewhere else. I said, no, don't do that. And more than ever, we need you guys here.
Ann Nguyen is the owner of Cam An Deli, a beloved Vietnamese deli that has been operating in Chinatown for over 30 years. And she's faced her own fair share of challenges long before the start of the pandemic.
Originally, I was a boat people.
Yeah.
That was pretty bizarre. It took me 28 days on the ocean to make it to Hong Kong. From Vietnam to Hong Kong, 28 days. No food, no water, no nothing flowing out there, and it's up to God. Wherever He take it, we take it. And we're so glad we make it to Hong Kong after 28 days. We survived, and then I live in the camp for years, become the translator, because back home I was lucky that English was second language, so they took me out.
At just 18 or 19 years old, Anne picked up English and began working as a translator for the UN, a feat that she says was made possible by a desperate desire to survive.
But I was so lucky that young and fast learners got to pick it up, because you got to survive, and refugee camp, anything, it's just like another words, like civil war, I believe. So at that age, you got to figure out, you got to survive, you got to make it. So
Anne eventually joined her brother in the States a few years later, with a sudden craving for the sandwiches from her home country, banh mi.
Interesting. As soon as I got here, I would die for the sandwich. I would just miss it so much. So I asked my brother. So my brother already here. So I asked him, "Can we have a sandwich the next day?" He said, "Okay," and he took me here.
Here, as in the very same Vietnamese deli that Anne now owns.
So I walked in here, and I just in love with it back then. And I said, "Can we have the store like this?" Like, I've dreamed about the store. The sandwich was just so amazing, and it would be cool to have it in Oakland, Chinatown.
20 years later, the original owner of the deli retired and handed over the keys to her deli's #1 fan, It was a literal dream come true.
And she said, this is for you, and come down to downtown and do it because they need you there. And I look at her like, hold on, I have no clue whatsoever, in food. And she said, oh, you figure it out. So I did. I went down and took me 3 months to learn, but I was so...
The deli reopened under Anne's ownership in 2018 and took roughly a year to really get off the ground.
Summer 2019. And we just start making it, and we start getting busy, and excited. The whole neighborhood was so happy that we opened back because she retired. She closed for 3 months. Yeah, so yes. So when I took over, it was a start all over again, and I was so blessed that the neighborhood, like people usually they pass by, recognize, and they were so supportive. So we were so lucky. We were so blessed that we'd be able to get back into business. Yeah. And here in March 17, the governor now shut down everything from last year. So it's been crazy. It was a really interesting ride, but I believe that we make it through because we have a strong community, and everyone help each other and try to get through this. And if we can get through this, we can get through anything. That's my experience. Because I've been through it, the gravity came, and if I can make it there, I can make it here.
Kam Ann Deli remains a beloved Chinatown restaurant, but community fears of violence, on top of the pre-existing challenges that all small businesses have faced during the pandemic, have driven away the Chinatown foot traffic that her deli typically relies on.
How are you feeling about the violence now?
Oh, it's just, right now I have to let staff go home early. I can't afford to do that. It used to be we close at 6 and then at 7 they can go home, but now no, we have to close at 4 so they can go home by 5 because it takes off about an hour and a half to, clean up everything. So make a long story, it's been tough lately. Very tough. It's like put a back where it was right after the pandemic when the governor announced, everything has to be shut down for a while. It's 6 weeks, that's what they promised. But it doesn't take 6 weeks, it takes a year and a half.
One key way for small businesses to stay afloat during the pandemic is to shift operations and advertising online. But this is an especially difficult task for first-generation legacy business owners, for whom English-language social media is not a natural or easy thing to learn. That's where Cut Fruit Collective and their second-generation internet savviness come in.
The business people kind of shaken, but they had with the people who visit, from our town, they look at the news and say, oh, this is too much going on. We don't want to go there, get in trouble. And it make it look really bad in Chinatown. So I thought, oh, is there anything we could do to
Let's do it.
We have to,
We're happy to help.
Yeah.
In fact, let's film for Instagram.
And action.
Hi everyone, this is On from Cayman. We would like to introduce the new noodle that we have in our restaurant. Recently, is we have pho and we have the chicken noodle, we have beef noodle, we have bún bò here. That's a favorite thing that everyone will look for. So please come by and check it out. But the most important is we do have a vegans in the noodle. So I'm working on it, and it's almost there to get to the they call pho in the vegan. This is really different. No one has it yet, so I'm so excited. So come and check it out, and thank you so much, and we'll see you later. Bye bye. Be safe. Got it?
Yeah.
Perhaps what stood out to me most about Anne was the enormous amount of care that she brought to every conversation, despite all the challenges that the pandemic has thrown her way. Food is her love language, and she never let any of us leave hungry.
But hold on, I do. It's so funny. I do make some special sandwich for the team. Oh, Dad, it's funny. Have you ever tried my waffle?
I have.
Waffle.
They have a Handan waffle, which it smells so amazing.
I did make the waffle.
Oh my God.
And this is the ham, and this is chicken. Who wants the ham?
Oh, thank you.
Ham. Yeah, I got to share with you guys because
Oh my gosh.
I'm just.
Thank you so much. Oh my God. I'm so excited to eat.
Dinner is served.
Dinner is served, and we'll be back with more after the break. Today's episode is brought to you by the untold political history of the fortune cookie. Despite the fortune cookie's ubiquitousness in Chinese restaurants across the United States today, the fortune cookie wasn't invented in China or America. In fact, the first fortune cookie can be traced back to confectionery shops right outside of Kyoto, Japan. These cookies are bigger and browner because their batter contains sesame and miso rather than vanilla and butter. Each cookie still has its own fortune, but fortunes are pinched inside the cookie's fold instead of being stuffed inside. But how did a Japanese cookie end up becoming a symbol of Chinese-American cuisine? Japanese immigrants who arrived to the U.S. in the early 20th century often opened Chinese restaurants instead of Japanese ones because Americans didn't want to eat raw fish. And they often offered fortune cookies to diners after their meals of chop suey or chow mein. Then Pearl Harbor happened. And in 1942, Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which forcibly removed all Americans of Japanese ancestry from their homes and sent them to internment camps due to fears of Japanese espionage, even though the vast majority of those sent to camps were American citizens. Not only was the act an atrocious civil rights violation, it also forced many Japanese American businesses to close, including bakeries and restaurants that produced fortune cookies. Chinese-owned manufacturers saw a business opportunity, and the rest is history. It's a cookie that's distinctly Asian American.
It is freaking me out. The gentrification is really freaking me out. I'm seeing more and more stores close down and being replaced by like up the block there used to be a barber shop there that has been there forever. And during COVID, they closed down. I didn't even realize it until I passed by the other day. And there's this massive neon sign there that has replaced it. A smoke store replaced it. And it had this massive Las Vegas neon sign next to it that says, like, you know, so you knew what they were selling. And I was like, oh wow, that's really loud. And it's obviously that store is catering towards people outside our community. It's not for people in our community, and that just made me feel kind of sad, you know.
Alicia, the owner of the Oakland Fortune Cookie Factory, grew up in Chinatown and considers it her home. And like almost all Chinatowns in the U.S. today, Oakland Chinatown has been facing steady gentrification even before the start of the pandemic. But perhaps this isn't surprising, knowing that Oakland Chinatown's history is one of gradual exclusion.
So this is Broadway.
Yeah.
And so Chinatown is like, people say like does not extend past Broadway.
Right.
And like I think that is sort of like not like it used to not be that way, but then I think like now, as I mentioned, like the sort of shrinking borders aspect of it. And I think like even back in the day, like the city of Oakland was like not very like keen on a large Chinatown, and so like didn't really encourage like the Asian businesses to like be on this side of Broadway. But
yeah, a lot of exclusionary like actions and laws basically made Chinatown where it is right now.
Right, because we just passed by a sweet green and now we're approaching a blue bottle complex.
Yeah, so
This is in addition to the pandemic-specific challenges that the factory has been facing more recently. But the factory's history is also one of incredible resilience and adaptation. Okay, so you said you got started, or the fortune cookie factory got started in like the 1950s?
Yes, 1957.
1957. Was that like your grandparents?
Oh, no, it was someone else. The owner of the building, he started the facility, and then it got passed on, and my parents and I, we acquired a place about 6 years ago.
Oh, okay, okay, I see. So before that, it had been owned by a different family, and then I see.
Yeah, they're still around. They just they wanted to shut it down because no one wanted to run it. So we thought, okay, maybe we can preserve it. So we started, and it was falling apart because there was a lot of things that were outdated, and so we thought, okay, maybe we can save it and do something like continue it, basically.
Wow! Oh my God! So was it your parents who thought that they might want to try to like save this place?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So my parents, they wanted to save the place. They they never had any experience with it, but they wanted to give it a try. And then I came back from college and I started helping out, and I thought, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. So I just got more and more involved.
It bears mentioning that despite the fact that Alicia is practically running the place now, she didn't study anything in the realm of business or hospitality or economics in college. She actually studied biology.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And what did you study there?
Biology.
Nice. Classic.
Very, pre-med.
Yeah.
That's every Asian parent's dream.
Did you ever imagine that you would come back and help run the factory?
No, absolutely not. I had my whole life set up there to do like a research. But my parents were really struggling. The factory was really struggling, so I came back to help out, and I saw a lot of potential and found some sort of I found a lot of fulfillment in running the place. So I stayed.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And do you hope to do it for like a long, long time, kind of thing?
Yeah, I hope to. I hope to continue on. I don't know if I'll make it there, but I would like to continue it and keep it running for the next generation.
What does it look like to run a next-generation fortune cookie factory? Today, the factory specializes in making beautiful custom-order handmade cookies for weddings, birthday celebrations, and other special occasions. But even beyond the artistry Alicia pours into her work, her cookies have blossomed into a movement with a distinct social and political sensibility.
Ever since COVID started, we really took an active role in civil rights and social justice events that have been happening, and that's something that we've never done before. But I saw that we could do something positive, and I think that's something I really want to focus on is what can I do to get more, what can I do to really support these movements?
And the world is taking notice.
If you pay close attention, through the hum of machines more than 60 years old, you'll see Oakland's fortune cookie factory is going through somewhat of a renaissance.
We want to change what people think of how people see a fortune cookie.
Amid the sea of batter and familiar-looking cookies we're used to, shaped one by the immigrant women the factory employs, is a cookie of a different color.
Here, the news report cuts to a shot of a black fortune cookie with silver capital letters BLM emblazoned on its outside.
The Black community has been suffering centuries of injustice and violence, so it is, I believe, everyone's responsibility to fight that. We wanted to take action and help.
But there's more to this cookie than what's on the outside. It's what's on the inside that's starting a conversation.
And when you open it, not only are you rewarded with a delicious treat, there's a thought-provoking message on the inside.
Quotes from civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and from the book How to Be an Anti-Racist and other resources to get educated.
50% of the proceeds from these cookies are donated to racial justice organizations. Most recently, Alicia has used her cookies to support the Stop Asian Hate movement, a movement that is deeply personal to Alicia, because the world is finally starting to pay attention to the collective pain that she remembers permeating her childhood.
It made me remember all the unpleasant feelings I had growing up, seeing how Asian people were portrayed in media, especially Asian women, how they were sexualized, fetishized, and all the discomfort, and then all the passive aggressive remarks from people. Remembering that both my parents got hurt and mugged at some point in their life, and then realizing that no one ever talks about it. No one I knew talks about it. No, my parents don't talk about it, and I certainly don't talk about it. We all just accepted it as a normal thing. And after I thought about that, I was like, wait, so it just made me really angry, because it just seemed like, okay, are they expecting us to accept all the violence from during COVID as a normal thing? Is this going to be the new normal on top of all the stuff we had to go through? So that made us that made me really angry. And again, I realized that I was like, oh wow, no one talks about this. We got to stop this pattern. It's almost
Alicia is finally talking about it in the way that she knows best.
What would you say is your favorite part about running this factory?
Being able to express something using fortune cookies, that was like the pinnacle where I was like, yes, I did it. Like, I made something that held meaning and that mattered and that was like positive. So having that challenge, like being able to express an emotion or a meaning and finding a way the technical way to do so with the cookies was the most fulfilling part. So for Chinese New Year, it took me forever to figure out how to find a way to stencil gold onto the cookies. So after a lot of experimenting around, I finally did it. I was like, this is beautiful. I can make an intricately patterned cookie using gold and hand painted on there. And with that same technique, we're able to use that for our Stop Asian Hate cookies and our solidarity cookies. So that that was like one of like my favorite like moments in my life, basically.
Perhaps most crucially, both Anne and Alicia's perspectives are ones that have been informed by lifetimes and livelihoods embedded in the Oakland Chinatown community. It's a stark difference from the intense online scrutiny that has largely fueled the narrative on Oakland's Chinatown and driven away its business.
I feel like one thing I also just want to mention is that, like, I think that when all of this stuff is viewed, like, and we see it online, I think it seems like really like visceral, and it seems like there's like these like few like different factions really going against each other. But I think the reality is that when it comes to the people who are actually on the ground working, it's like a really diverse community, and like this, I think that online makes it seem like worse than it really is.
Right, because that's all you see out of the entire
and folks who don't even live in the area. You know? And so that kind of blows it up more than what's on the ground in the reality. That's the thing about media and social media. It doesn't give you the full view. It doesn't give you the time and to have nuance to do the research.
Nuance, I found, often comes from local reporting. Oakland-based reporter Momo Chang argues that parsing through the violence happening in Chinatown involves grappling with the factors that make Chinatown such a vulnerable place to begin with. 43% of the mostly Asian population is aged 60 and older. Over 30% of residents live below the poverty line, and roughly 60% of the population are women. Calls to increase police presence on the streets of Chinatown must also be reckoned alongside immigrant mistrust and unfamiliarity with police reporting systems.
And I think for me personally, like especially I just want to point out though that Oakland Chinatown is, as I mentioned, like literally 1 block away from the Oakland police headquarters. And so I think it says a lot that you can be 1 block away from the police headquarters, and yet for some reason like the community has been having to deal with a lot of violence on its own. And so I think that is also something that is understandably a cause of frustration for a lot of the residents to like literally see this looming building and like feeling like none of the benefits of it.
So, what's the best way forward? While there's no silver bullet out there that can magically cure such a complex issue, Cutfruit Collective hopes to support long-term approaches that address the root causes of violence in Chinatown.
You know, in talking with our team, we just wanted to make sure we are coming at it not out of fear, but more out of curiosity, more out of community building, coalition building, and also looking towards long-term solutions. There's a lot of groups that have popped up with short-term solutions, which are great. You know, we feel like that's covered. But on the long-term front, who's thinking about how the unhoused population is affecting Chinatown? There's literally a whole block full of unhoused community members that are right next to, like, in Chinatown. And so how do we actually support those folks, build bridges between, you know, residents that are housed and unhoused, and that's not necessarily we're not experts on that, but we want to support people who are thinking about those issues. Because that is actually, if you look at, you know, a good amount of the violence that has happened in Chinatown has been between the unhoused population, or has, been around that. And so looking at the long-term solutions, looking at like real on the ground, what's actually happening is really important for us, and trying not to do any sort of fear-mongering.
And on a more personal level, Alicia says that her community has found strength in each other throughout the pandemic.
This far, I don't think we would have survived COVID if it wasn't for our community supporting us. So after we closed like a few nonprofit organizations, there was one called like Save Our Chinatown and Good Eats. They helped us. They helped connect us with people who brought attention to us. We got connected and put with a journalist for them, and they were able to help write an article and put us on the New York Times, and things like that. And it was all these connections we made with the community and the support that we were able to get to where we are now. So it really makes us like determined to grow our business to a point where we can become a pillar of support for other businesses. I think, like that, like is like our ultimate stretch goal. Having the privilege to be able to help others.
Much of Alicia's motivation to keep her community alive comes from childhood memories, from a sense of place that's been cultivated over a lifetime. Supporting Chinatown isn't just about grieving the victims of anti-Asian violence, though that's certainly part of it. It's an existential concern of home, family, and identity. One of Alicia's favorite childhood spots? The Sweet Booth, a boba and fruit smoothie shop that's been around since the 90s.
Yeah, so my favorite boba place would be Sweet Booth. It's been there since forever, and my mom used to take me there for an avocado smoothie if I get an A. So I am desperate to keep that place open because they make the best smoothies, and I tell everyone to go there.
Of course, I had to go to the Sweet Booth and try the legendary avocado smoothie for myself.
Avocado smoothie. B+. 12 out of 10.
Ultimately, Daphne and Maya believe that change isn't necessarily bad. Change is natural. It's only when the change isn't community-driven that it becomes a cause for concern. What Cut Fruit Collective hopes to provide is care, not charitable service. In fact, it's why Cut Fruit Collective, which was originally named Save Our Chinatowns, changed its name.
Yeah, so for me, I love that I'm living near a living, breathing Chinatown. That's something. I actually grew up in a Chinese enclave, so like I'm familiar with that sort of feeling and sentiment. But Oakland Chinatown's historical, and it's just amazing to see that it's still, living, breathing, and thriving. At least before the pandemic, and to be able to enjoy all, the food is of course the best part. All these amazing businesses that I love, and that just bring me comfort, connect me to my heritage, connect me to my community. I really love having that, and I really just appreciate it for what it is. And that's ultimately what I want people to do, is appreciate it for what it is. You don't need to change it. It can change, it will change, but don't force anything on it that doesn't feel natural or right.
For Alicia, this means staying true to both the Fortune Cookie Factory's legacy and her vision for its future. No easy task, but one that she's fully embraced.
So my mission is to preserve the legacy of this factory, the history of this factory, of the method of making the fortune cookies, because no one else is making fortune cookies by hand anymore. There might be one other place in San Francisco. I don't know if they're still around because of COVID, but my goal is to really preserve the whole process and keep it as same as the original as possible. And at the same time, we want to elevate the quality and change people's perception of what a fortune cookie can look like and taste like. So yeah, that's our mission, to spread joy with our cookies and hopefully keep the factory running for another 50 years.
Huge thanks to Alicia, Daphne, Maya, Anne, and the Oakland Chinatown community for sharing a bit of that joy with me. This is Sabrina, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Viral Love. For every story I've told in these episodes, there are a million more that I couldn't include. Special thanks to every person I interviewed and every person who helped me along the way in each city I visited. Their stories informed the writing of this podcast, even if they didn't make it in. This episode was written, recorded, and produced by me, Sabrina, and edited by both myself and Brendon Lin. Theme music was composed and performed by Mark Fish. Additional music was sourced from Blue Dot Sessions and Oakland Jazz Collective. This podcast was produced as a part of the Xingsheng Project, a digital initiative that publishes alternative, progressive perspectives on the most widely circulated issues on WeChat and among the Chinese diaspora. To learn more, visit www.xingshengproject.org. That's www.xinshengproject.org. Viral Love is made possible by funding from Projects for Peace.